Ethan Voss opened his eyes slowly. At first, everything was blurry. Cold air touched his skin and his body ached all over. He was lying inside a cryosleep pod. The glass lid was open, and dim red emergency lights blinked around him for a few moments. He didn't move. His head hurt. His heart beat faster than normal. Something was wrong. He sat up, looking around the room. It was quiet. Too quiet. Computer, he said with a dry voice. Report status. There was no reply, he climbed out of the pod, his legs shaking a little. The cryosleep bay, which was usually full of people and activity, was empty. The other pods were open, but no one was inside. There were no signs of a fight, no blood. No bodies, just ... nothing. Ethan walked to the control panel. The screen was cracked. Static flickered across it. He tried to access the logs, but the system was locked out. What happened here? He whispered. The last thing he remembered was the start of their deep space mission. The Stellar Horizon had launched with a crew of over 200. They were heading to explore a new system near the Zara Nebula. Everything was going fine. Then, darkness. He checked the emergency power systems. Life support was running, but barely. Oxygen was at 40%. He had to find a working console or a way to contact someone. Ethan picked up a flashlight from the wall and opened the cryobay door. The hallway beyond was dark and silent. Small sparks came from broken panels. The ship was damaged, but not destroyed. He moved carefully, listening for any sounds. There were none. No voices, no footsteps, no hum of machinery. Just silence. He passed through the medbay, empty. The mess hall, also empty. No sign of struggle, but everything looked abandoned. Chairs were turned over. A cup sat on a table as if someone had just placed it there. A strange feeling grew in his chest. Fear, loneliness. Was he the only one left? He shook the thought away. He had to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help. Ethan reached the bridge. The doors were stuck, so he forced them open with a metal rod. Inside, the main view screen was offline. The captain's chair was empty. The control panels showed signs of power failure. Emergency lights blinked in slow rhythm. He checked the navigation log. It was corrupted. He pulled up the internal sensors, but the system was limited. Only parts of the ship were still active. One strange thing caught his eye: a power signature in the eastern wing of the ship. It was faint, but steady. Someone, or something, was over there. He took a deep breath and started walking toward it. The eastern wing had been closed during the mission. It was meant for special cargo, storage, and unused rooms. Nobody had any reason to go there. But now, it seemed like the only clue. As he moved down the corridor, he noticed something: odd symbols drawn on the walls. They were not human. Curved lines, glowing slightly, almost like writing. He didn't recognize them. His heart beat faster. He reached the door where the power signal was coming from. It was sealed shut, but lights glowed around the edges. He placed his hand on the panel, and after a few seconds, it slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a large chamber he didn't remember seeing on the ship's original plans. The walls were smooth and metallic, but in a different design than the rest of the ship. In the center of the room was a glowing crystal structure. Energy flowed from it, powering the lights and machines around it, and then he saw her. She was standing near the crystal, tall and still, a figure of grace and mystery. Her skin shimmered like silver under the lights. Long hair, almost like strands of light, flowed down her back. She wore armor made of unknown material, marked with glowing lines and patterns. Her eyes, large and purple, stared directly at Ethan. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan couldn't believe what he was seeing. She wasn't human, but she wasn't like any alien he had ever studied in training. She looked regal, like a queen or a princess from another world. She tilted her head slightly, studying him as if surprised he was alive. He raised a hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. She didn't respond with words, but took one step forward. Ethan stood still. His mind was racing with questions, but one thing was now clear. He wasn't alone on the Stellar Horizon. Ethan and the alien woman stood in silence for several long seconds. The only sound was the soft humming of the crystal in the center of the room. Its light reflected off the walls and danced across their faces. Ethan's heart was pounding. He didn't know whether to run or speak again, but she didn't look angry. She didn't look dangerous. She looked confused. Ethan lowered his flashlight, not wanting to scare her. She watched his movements carefully, her glowing eyes never leaving him. He slowly took one step forward, then stopped. "My name is Ethan," he said quietly, pointing to himself. "Ethan." The alien tilted her head as if thinking. Then slowly she lifted a hand and touched her chest. "Arali." "Zin?" she said in a soft, musical voice. Ethan blinked in surprise. She could speak. "Not well, maybe, but it was a start. Aralizin," he repeated. "Nice to meet you." Her face remained calm. She looked at him closely, as if she were trying to understand more than just his words. Then she pointed to the door he had come through and said something in her language. Ethan didn't understand the words, but the way she looked at him made it clear. She had a question. "I don't know what happened to the crew," he answered, even though he knew she couldn't understand him either. "I woke up alone." She seemed to catch the word alone. Her expression changed, just a little, eyes softer, more serious. She nodded, slowly. Ethan looked around the room. It was clearly not part of the original ship. The design, the colors, the materials, everything was different. It looked like a room from another world. He pointed to the walls. "This isn't part of the stellar horizon. Did your ship connect to ours?" Aralizin didn't reply, but she stepped closer to the crystal and pressed her hand to a panel. A small hologram appeared in the air. Ethan stared in amazement. It showed two ships, his ship, and another smaller, sleeker ship connected to it. They had docked at some point. Ethan looked at the image, then at her. "You came aboard." "But why?" She touched the crystal again, and a second hologram appeared. This one showed a third ship, dark, spiked, and dangerous looking. It moved fast and fired beams of red light. Ethan watched as the strange ship attacked both of the other ships. Explosions, damage, systems going offline. Then the screen went dark. Ethan's face turned serious. "An attack." "That's what happened." Aralizin nodded. It all made sense. Now, the stellar horizon had been ambushed during its journey. The alien princess must have been on the other ship, perhaps seeking help or peace. But before they could do anything, both ships were attacked. The crew either fled or were taken. Only Ethan and Aralizin remained. Suddenly, a loud clicking noise came from the hallway. Ethan turned quickly, flashlight pointed toward the door. Aralizin stepped beside him, her hand resting on a strange curved device on her hip. A weapon, perhaps. Her eyes were sharp now, ready for anything. They waited. The sound came again. Then silence. Ethan whispered, "We need to move." Aralizin gave a single nod. She touched the crystal one more time, and it powered down, going dim. Then she motioned for Ethan to follow her. They moved quickly through the quiet hallways. Aralizin seemed to know the path well, even in the dark. She moved with grace and speed, checking corners before turning and listening for any sound. Ethan followed her lead. He admired her calm under pressure. She was clearly trained, perhaps a soldier or a royal protector. Soon they reached a sealed door. Aralizin pressed her palm against the panel. It scanned her hand, then opened slowly with a hiss. Inside was a small room filled with strange equipment and screens. One of the machines blinked softly, showing power. She stepped forward and touched the screen. A map of the ship appeared. Ethan leaned over her shoulder. "That's it," he said. "That's what I need." She looked at him and smiled, just a little. It was the first friendly gesture he had seen from her. Ethan touched a section of the map. "Bridge is here. We can try to get the main systems online, maybe send a signal." Aralizin studied the map, then nodded again. She touched another part of the screen, zooming in. A blinking red dot showed movement. Ethan frowned. Something's still on board. He looked at her. She was already pulling something from a drawer, a small glowing blade and a silver shield. She handed him a small device. It fit in his hand and buzzed softly. A shield, a scanner? He wasn't sure, but what he did know was this. They weren't safe yet. The ship was damaged. Something or someone was still hunting them? But now he had an ally, a powerful one, and maybe a friend. Ethan Voss stood still. The alien woman stood just a few feet away, her bright purple eyes fixed on him. She didn't move, didn't speak. The light from the glowing crystal behind her gave her silver skin a soft shine. Her long hair moved gently, even though there was no wind. Her armor sparkled like it was made from stars. Ethan had trained for many missions. He had studied alien life forms, star systems, and first contact rules. But nothing had prepared him. For this moment, he pointed to himself. "Ethan," he said slowly. The alien woman watched him carefully, then touched her chest. "Aralizin," she replied in a soft, echoing voice. Ethan nodded. "Aralizin," he repeated. She nodded back once. There was a pause between them, filled only with the soft hum of the crystal in the room. Neither of them knew what would happen next. Ethan took a careful step forward, keeping his hands open and relaxed to show he meant no harm. Aralizin didn't stop him, but her eyes followed his every move. He looked around the room. The walls were smooth and curved, glowing faintly with strange patterns. This was not part of the original ship. It had a different design, a different feeling. He pointed at the floor and looked at her. This room, not human. She seemed to understand. She walked to a control panel and pressed a glowing button. A bright blue hologram appeared in the air. Ethan stepped back in surprise. It showed two ships. One was the Stellar Horizon, the other smaller and sleeker, with wings that curved like a bird's. The smaller ship was attached to the human one. So this is how she got here. Ethan thought her ship had connected with his, then the image changed. A third ship appeared, dark, sharp, and dangerous. It fired red beams at both ships, explosions, damage, the lights of both ships dimmed. Aralizin looked at him. Her face was calm but sad. She said a few words in her own language, slow and soft. Ethan didn't understand the words, but he felt the meaning. They had been attacked. Maybe even betrayed. "I don't know where the rest of my crew went," he said. "I woke up alone." Aralizin said nothing but looked into his eyes. Something in her expression changed. Maybe she understood a little. Suddenly, a sharp metallic sound came from outside the room. Like claws tapping against metal. Ethan turned. Quickly, Aralizin moved too, one hand reaching for a strange-looking weapon at her side. It was long and curved, glowing slightly at the tip. They waited. Silence. Then another soft sound. Moving away this time. "Something's still out there," Ethan whispered. Aralizin gave a small nod, then pressed a button on the wall. The door opened slowly and silently. She looked back at him, motioning with her hand. "Okay," Ethan said. "I'm with you." They walked quickly through the corridor. She moved like she knew the ship well. Ethan guessed she had been awake for some time, maybe longer than him. She knew which turns to take and which doors to avoid. After a few minutes, they reached a door with glowing lines. Aralizin placed her hand on the panel, and it opened with a soft hiss. Inside was a control room filled with blinking lights and screens. Some were cracked, but one still worked. She walked to it and touched the screen. A map of the ship appeared. Ethan moved beside her. "The bridge is here," he said, pointing. "We need to go there to fix the ship or send a signal." She zoomed into the map and tapped the red blinking light in a lower hallway. The symbol showed movement. Something was there. "Not alone," Ethan said. "We need to be careful." Aralizin opened a small case near the wall. Inside were tools and strange devices. She handed Ethan a small round object that hummed. When he touched it, it attached to his arm like a bracelet. He wasn't sure what it did, but it felt strong. He looked at her. "Thank you." She smiled softly, just a little. It was the first time she had shown any emotion besides calm silence. Ethan felt something shift inside him. He had been afraid, lonely, and confused when he woke up. Now, standing next to this brave alien princess, he felt something else. Hope. He didn't know what was ahead. The ship was still in danger. There were enemies on board. The crew was missing. But he wasn't alone anymore. And that made all the difference. The hallway was dark and quiet as Ethan followed Aralizin through the lower levels of the ship. Only their soft footsteps echoed around them. Sparks blinked from broken wires on the walls. Many parts of the ship had been damaged badly. Ethan held the small round device she had given him. It felt warm on his wrist and glowed with a soft blue light. He didn't know what it did yet, but he trusted her. Somehow, he felt safe walking beside her. Even though they didn't speak the same language, Aralizin stopped at a sealed door. A warning sign blinked above it, restricted access. This leads to the data core, Ethan said. Maybe we'll find answers here. Aralizin placed her hand on the control panel. The door scanned her and then opened with a soft hiss. Ethan gave a surprised look. It responded to you, he said. How is that possible? She didn't answer, but her calm face showed she had expected it. They entered the room. Inside, a large glowing sphere floated in the center. Lines of energy moved around it like rivers of light. It was the ship's central data core, the memory of the stellar horizon. If anything could explain what happened, it was here. Ethan stepped forward and touched the main console. It flickered, then powered on. A voice spoke softly. Welcome, Lieutenant Commander Ethan Voss. Warning, ship memory files damaged. Searching for backup logs? The screen flashed several times before stopping on one file marked Emergency Log Priority Alpha. Ethan opened it. The recording began with Captain Reyna's face. She looked tired, her eyes wide with fear. This is Captain Reyna of the Stellar Horizon. We have been attacked by an unknown alien ship. They call themselves the Krell Dominion. We tried to make contact, but they opened fire without warning. Static filled the screen for a few seconds. They boarded us. Took many crew members. Some fought back, but we were outnumbered. We're losing control of the ship. Her voice shook now. There is one hope. A guest from another star. System was on board. A princess, a leader, perhaps even a key to peace. Her name is Aralizin. We protected her as long as we could. If anyone finds this, please help her. Help us. The video ended. Ethan stood still, shocked. He turned to look at Aralizin. She stood calmly, but there was a sadness in her eyes. You were the guest, Ethan said softly. You were. On a peaceful mission? And they attacked both of us? She gave a small nod. Now it made sense. The strange room, the crystal, the docking of her ship with the stellar horizon. She had come in peace, maybe even to offer help or share knowledge. But instead of peace, they found war. Ethan checked the system logs again. Another file popped up. This one showed the Krell's plan, how they wanted to take control of the stellar horizon and use it to get close to Earth. They wanted to use our ship like a trap, Ethan whispered. To sneak past defenses and attack my home. He clenched his fist. But then he felt Aralizin's hand on his shoulder. It was light and gentle. He looked at her. She said something in her own language, soft and calm. He couldn't understand the words, but the way she said them felt like, don't give up. Ethan took a deep breath. You're right, he said. We can't give up now. Suddenly the screen flashed red. A warning message appeared. Movement. Detected, hostile life form approaching. A map showed a red dot moving quickly toward their location. They're coming? Ethan said. Aralizin was already moving. She handed Ethan a long metal rod with buttons along the side. He pressed one and a glowing shield appeared from the end. Nice. He smiled. Aralizin activated her blade. It glowed with bright white energy. Her face was focused now. Ready? For battle, they moved out of the data core and into the hallway. The red dot on Ethan's screen was getting closer. Then they saw it, a Krell drone tall, thin, made of dark metal and sharp edges. Its eyes glowed red and its arms were shaped like blades. It let out a strange, electric sound and charged toward them. Ethan raised the shield. The drone slammed into it, sparks flying. Aralizin moved like a flash of light, her blade cutting through the air. She struck the drone's leg, making it stumble. Ethan pushed forward, blocking another attack. Together, they moved in perfect rhythm. Aralizin struck fast and Ethan defended carefully. Finally, with a strong slice, her blade cut through the drone's core. It dropped to the floor, sparking, then lay still. Ethan breathed hard. That was close. She looked at him and smiled slightly. He smiled back. Okay, he said. Let's get to the bridge. If we can take back the ship, we can send a warning to Earth. We can stop the Krell. Aralizen nodded. They started walking again. Side by side, they were from different worlds, different species. But now they had the same goal, survive. And fight back. The halls of the stellar horizon were colder now. The lights flickered as Ethan and Aralizen moved deeper into the ship. Behind them, the remains of the Krell drones still sparked on the floor. But they didn't stop to look back. There was no time. The path to the bridge was not safe. We're almost there, Ethan said, checking the small scanner on his wrist. Just 2 more levels up. Aralizen nodded, eyes scanning the hallway ahead. Her energy blade was still, glowing softly in her hand. She didn't speak much, but her calm presence gave Ethan strength. He felt less alone with her at his side. They climbed a narrow staircase. Every step echoed like a drumbeat. At the top, a sealed door blocked their way. It was half broken, sparks flashing from its control panel. Ethan touched the buttons, but nothing happened. Locked. Aralizen stepped forward. She placed both hands on the door, closed her eyes, and whispered something in her own language. A soft purple light glowed from her hands. Ethan watched in silence as the light spread across the door. After a few seconds, the panel stopped sparking and the door slid open slowly. He blinked. You fixed it with energy? She didn't explain, only gave him a small, peaceful look before walking forward. They entered a wide hallway with windows looking out into space. Stars twinkled in the darkness. For a moment, everything felt still, beautiful, peaceful, but that peace didn't last long. Suddenly, warning lights flashed red. The scanner beeped. Ethan looked down. 3 red dots were moving toward them fast. Krell hunters, he said. Coming fast. Aralizen raised her weapon. Go, she said clearly. Bridge? Ethan hesitated. I can't leave you. She looked at him with sharp, serious eyes. Bridge? Ethan nodded. Together. The hunters appeared at the far end of the hallway, taller than the drone before. Their armor was dark and jagged, their red eyes glowing like fire. They moved quickly without sound. The first one leapt forward. Aralizen met it head-on, her blade flashed. Sparks flew as metal met energy. Ethan raised his shield to block another hunter's strike. The force of the hit made him slide back, but he held firm. He remembered his training. Stay calm. Think. Clearly, he swung his shield to knock the hunter off balance, then pressed a button on the side. The shield released a burst of light, blinding the enemy. Aralizen took the chance to finish it with a clean strike. The second hunter lunged at Ethan. This time, Aralizen was faster. She threw a small disc that hit the creature's leg, freezing it in place. Ethan slammed it with his shield, and it crashed into the wall. Only one was left. This one was stronger and faster. It moved like a shadow, dodging their attacks. Aralizen tried to strike, but the creature jumped over her. It aimed straight for Ethan. Ethan braced for impact, but the alien princess stepped in front of him, blocking the attack with her shield. The force knocked her back. She hit the floor hard. Arali! Ethan shouted. The hunter turned to finish her, but Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed the glowing rod she had given him earlier and struck the hunter's core with all his strength. The weapon pulsed with energy. With a loud crack, the hunter's body lit up and fell still. Ethan ran to her side. Are you okay? Aralizen opened her eyes slowly. She nodded weakly, trying to sit up. Ethan helped her. Her arm was bruised and her breathing was heavy, but she was alive. You saved me, he said. Helping her stand, she looked at him, then touched his hand softly. Friend, she said. Ethan smiled. Yes, friend. They continued toward the bridge, moving slower now. Aralizen leaned on Ethan a little, but she stayed strong. She didn't complain once. At last, they reached the final door, the bridge, Ethan said. If we can take control, we can send a message to Earth and stop the Krell. Aralizen nodded. Ethan placed his hand on the door's scanner. It blinked. Voice identification required. He cleared his throat. Lieutenant Commander. Ethan Voss, access code Voss 1988 Delta. The system paused, then responded, access granted. Welcome, Lieutenant Commander. The door opened. Inside, the bridge was dark, filled with broken panels and flickering lights. Screens showed static, but the captain's chair still stood strong in the center. Ethan walked forward and touched the main console. It buzzed. I need to restore power to the main systems, he said. This might take time. Aralizan looked around carefully. She pointed to a side panel. Energy there, she said. Together they started working, connecting wires, restarting systems, and clearing errors. Slowly, lights began to return. One by one, the controls came alive again. They were tired, hurt, and outnumbered, but now they had a chance. The bridge lights blinked on, one by one. Screens across the room lit up with soft blue light. The hum of power returning filled the air. Like music? For the first time since waking up alone, Ethan felt like the ship was alive again. He sat in the captain's chair, hands moving quickly over the controls. Main systems online, he said. We have partial control. Let's try to send a signal. Aralizan stood beside him, her eyes focused on the screens. Her arm was still hurt, but she didn't show any pain. She watched every step Ethan took, learning fast. He opened the communication system. This is Lieutenant Commander Ethan Voss of the Stellar Horizon. We've been attacked by Krell forces. Most of the crew is missing. We need help. Repeat, this is a distress call. He paused, waiting. The screen showed no reply. The ship's antenna was still weak. Damage had blocked most of the outgoing. Signal. Ethan sighed. We need to boost the signal. Maybe from the main antenna array on top of the ship? Aralizan pointed to a map on the screen. Danger? She was right, that area was marked in red. It had no oxygen, broken walls, and signs of more enemy movement. Still, we have to try, Ethan said. We must warn Earth before the Krell reach them. She nodded slowly. She understood. Even though Earth was not her home, she knew it mattered to Ethan. And to peace, they left the bridge and headed for the upper tower. The path was broken in places, forcing them to climb and crawl. Pipes hissed. Metal creaked. As they moved through one dark hallway, they found something unexpected, a room glowing with soft green light. Ethan stepped inside carefully. There were small pods inside the room. One was open. The others were sealed. He wiped the frost off the glass of the nearest pod. His heart skipped a beat. It was a crew member, alive, sleeping. Stasis pods, he said. Some of the crew made it. Aralizan touched the pod and looked at Ethan. Safe? Yes, he said with hope. They're alive. But they won't wake up unless we restore full power. She smiled softly. A small victory. Ethan placed a hand on the glass. We'll come back for them. I promise. They continued up the tower. The climb grew harder. Cold air blew through the broken panels. The stars above looked close, now beautiful and dangerous. At the top, they reached the antenna control panel. It was half crushed, but Ethan thought he could fix it. Cover me, he said. Aralizan stood watch while he worked. Sparks flew as he connected wires and replaced a damaged fuse. His hands moved fast, his mind focused. Then he heard a sound like metal scraping. His heart froze. He turned around. A Krell soldier stood at the far end of the tower. Bigger than the others, stronger. Its armor was dark gold, and its red eyes burned like fire. Aralizan stepped between it and Ethan. The Krell soldier spoke in a harsh voice. Give her to us. The princess belongs to us. Ethan stood up, angry. She belongs to no one. The Krell raised its weapon. Aralizan threw a glowing orb that exploded in light, blinding the enemy for a second. She charged forward, blade glowing. The battle was fierce. Sparks flew. Metal clashed. Ethan tried to help, using his shield to block the Krell's attacks. But this enemy was stronger, faster. The Krell hit Aralizan hard, throwing her back. She rolled but stood again. Her blade still in hand. Ethan saw a weak spot on the Krell's back, an exposed panel. Now! He shouted. Aralizan understood. She dodged the next attack and slid behind the Krell with a powerful strike. She drove her blade into the weak point. The Krell screamed, sparks flying, then fell to the floor, breathing heavily. They both stood. In silence, Ethan turned back to the antenna. He pressed the final button. The signal was sent. A blue light shot from the top of the tower into space. The message repeated, "This is the Stellar Horizon. We are under attack by Krell forces. Help is needed. Survivors on board." Ethan sat down, exhausted. Oralizin sat beside him. He looked at her. "We did it." She nodded slowly, then pointed. "To the stars, help come?" she asked. "I believe so," he said with a hopeful smile. "I believe someone will hear us." They sat there in silence for a moment, watching the stars. For the first time, the darkness felt less scary. They had fought together, protected each other, and now sent a message that might save many lives. They were no longer alone, and the war was not over yet. The stars above the damaged ship twinkled, quietly, as if watching Ethan and Oralizin from far away. The distress signal had been sent, and for the first time, a tiny light of hope began to shine in their hearts. But they knew their fight was not over. Ethan helped Oralizin stand. She had taken a strong hit during the battle with the Krell. Soldier, and though she said nothing, Ethan could see the pain in her eyes. "We need to get back inside," he said. "There might be more Krell searching for us." They climbed down the tower slowly. The halls of the Stellar Horizon felt colder. Now, the ship had come back to life, but danger still waited in the shadows. As they neared the main hallway, the lights flickered again. A warning message flashed on the wall screen. "Unauthorized signal detected. Origin, Engineering Bay." Ethan frowned. "Another signal from the lower part of the ship?" Oralizin looked at him with concern. She pointed at the screen. "Trap?" Ethan nodded. Maybe the Krell are doing something down there." He opened the map. The engineering bay was deep inside the ship. If the Krell were using it, they might be building something or sending a message of their own. If they call for reinforcements, Ethan said this whole ship could be lost. They had no choice. They had to go down and find out what the Krell were doing. The path to the engineering bay was quiet, too quiet. Pipes leaked steam, and strange sounds echoed through the halls. Ethan held his shield tight, and Oralizin moved like a shadow beside him. At last, they reached the main doors. Ethan scanned the panel. "The locks are broken. Someone forced their way inside." He opened the door. Inside, the room was glowing red. Krell machines lined the walls, their strange technology pulsing with energy. In the center of the room stood a tall device part machine, part alien crystal. Ethan's eyes widened. "That's a beacon." Oralizin stepped closer. "Enemy." "Call others?" "Yes," Ethan said. "They're trying to bring more Krell ships here." They had to stop it. Suddenly a voice echoed through the room, cold, robotic. "You are too late, human." A Krell commander stepped out of the shadows. It was taller than the others, its armor black and silver. Red lights blinked across its body. "Earth will fall," it said. "You cannot stop us." Ethan raised his shield. "Maybe not, but I can try." Oralizin stood beside him. Her blade lit up once more. The Krell commander raised its arms, and two more drones appeared. Stepping out from behind the machine, the battle began. The commander moved fast, striking with a glowing staff. Ethan blocked the first hit but stumbled backward. One drone attacked Oralizin, and the other rushed toward Ethan. They fought hard. Ethan used the shield to block and hit. His training kept him alive, but the Krell were strong. Oralizin moved like flowing wind, striking with grace and speed. Her blade lit the room with every move. The drones fell first. Together, Ethan and Oralizin broke their armor and sent them crashing to the floor. Only the commander remained. It hit hard, pushing Ethan to the ground. His shield slid across the floor. He rolled aside just in time as the Krell's staff struck the ground, making sparks fly. Oralizin attacked from behind, but the commander spun around and knocked her back with a blast of energy. She hit the wall and cried out, "No!" Ethan shouted. Something inside him changed. A deep strength rose in his chest. He grabbed a broken piece of metal nearby and charged forward. The Krell raised its staff to strike, but Ethan didn't stop. He leapt forward and smashed the metal into the weak part of the commander's chest. A loud crack. The Krell screamed. Its lights flickered. Aralizen stood, raised her blade one last time, and struck the final blow. The commander's body sparked, then fell still. Silence filled the room. They were breathing hard, but they were alive. Ethan looked at the beacon. We need to shut that thing down. He found the control panel and began pressing buttons. The beacon flashed, then dimmed. The red lights stopped blinking. It's done, he said. The Krell couldn't call for help now. Aralizen stood beside him. She looked at the broken machine and then at Ethan. Together, she said. He smiled. Yes, we fight together. They walked back to the upper level slowly, their bodies tired but their spirits stronger. They had stopped the Krell's signal. They had protected the ship. And they had done it as a team. On the way, Ethan stopped at the stasis room again. He placed a hand on the glass of the sleeping crew member. We're coming back for you, I promise. Aralizen stood beside him. She placed her hand over his and gave a gentle nod. Outside the window, a light blinked in the distance. Ethan looked up. A ship, he whispered. Someone heard us. Help was coming. The blinking light in the distance grew brighter. Ethan and Aralizen stood near the main window of the stellar horizon, watching it closely. It wasn't a star, it was moving. It was real, a ship, Ethan whispered again, his voice filled with hope. Someone answered the signal. Aralizen narrowed her eyes at the shape coming closer through space. Friend or enemy? Ethan nodded thoughtfully. Let's find out. He hurried back to the ship's communication panel and turned it on. Static buzzed at first, then a voice broke through. This is the USS Guardian. We received your signal. Stellar Horizon, do you read? Ethan quickly replied, his hands shaking with excitement. Guardian, this is Lieutenant Commander Ethan Voss. The ship has been attacked by Krell forces. We have survivors in stasis and a guest, an ally. There was a short pause, then the voice returned. Help is on the way. Prepare for boarding. Ethan turned to Aralizen with a big smile. We're not alone anymore. She smiled back, her purple eyes soft but strong. Good, very good. A few hours later, the Guardian docked with the stellar horizon. Its boarding team entered carefully, weapons ready. Ethan walked out to meet them with both hands raised to show peace. Behind him, Aralizen stood calmly, her royal armor dim but still shining. Captain Reyna Cross, a tall woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, stepped forward. She looked at Ethan and then at the alien princess. You sent the signal? She asked. Yes, ma'am, Ethan said. With her help? Her name is Aralizen? She's not from our world, but she's not our enemy. Captain Cross looked at Aralizen for a long moment, then gave a short nod. Understood. Thank you for holding the ship. We've been searching for survivors for days. There are crew members in stasis, Ethan explained. I didn't have enough power to wake them. The rescue team moved quickly to the stasis room. Medical officers began checking the sleeping crew. Ethan felt a weight lift off his chest. His friends, his family would be safe. He turned to Aralizen. You helped save them. She looked away for a moment, then softly said, You saved me too. Later that day, with most systems restored, Ethan and Aralizen stood together in the observation deck. The stars outside looked peaceful again. Captain Cross joined them. We've learned more from the Krell wreckage, she said. They weren't just attacking, they were searching for something. Aralizen turned. Me. The captain raised an eyebrow. You? I am the daughter of the House of Zin, she explained. My people ruled many peaceful worlds. The Krell destroyed them. I was the last to escape. I hid here? Ethan listened carefully. They were hunting her, he said. That's why they didn't just destroy the stellar horizon. They wanted to capture her alive. Captain Cross looked thoughtful. Then we owe you both more than thanks. You stopped them from calling more reinforcements. You saved Earth, Aralizen bowed slightly. Earth is brave. Like Ethan smiled but felt a little shy. We just did what we had to. The next day, the rescued crew woke from stasis. There were tears, cheers, and hugs. Ethan walked through the halls, greeting old friends who thought he was lost. Some had questions about the battle, others about the alien princes, but most were simply grateful to be alive. Ethan stood near the main engine room when Aralizen found him again. She held something in her hand, a small crystal glowing faintly. "This," she said, "is the last memory of my world." He took it gently. "It's beautiful. It is yours now," she said, "a gift." "So you remember?" Ethan looked at her with soft eyes. "I won't forget, never." She smiled and looked out the window. "I must find a new home. Somewhere safe, somewhere I can help others." He nodded. "You'll always have a place with us. You've earned that." She turned to him. "And you? What will you do?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I think I'll keep flying. There's a whole galaxy out there. And now I know we're not alone." 1 week later, the Stellar Horizon was towed back to Earth orbit. The ship would be repaired, the crew honored, and a new story added to. Human history, one not just of survival, but of unity. Aralizen prepared to leave. Her people had friends among the stars, and she was going to search for them. But before she left, she stood with Ethan one last time on the launch platform. "I never thought I would meet a human," she said quietly. "Or call one a friend." Ethan held out his hand. "Friend," he said with a grin, "always." She placed her hand in his. The stars above them sparkled like a promise. And as her small ship rose into the sky, Ethan watched until it disappeared. He stood tall. The war wasn't over, but humanity had found its strength and a friend among the stars.